After over a year of traveling alone through Latin America, returning to Mexico City felt like a homecoming. Waiting for me here were the friends I made at the very beginning of this journey, the beautiful people who cheered me on as I went from Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Argentina, Brazil, Guatemala, and now back to Mexico, where I started. To be honest, Mexico City is my favorite place in Latin America. Ironically, my first meal back was Japanese. My friend Fernando, a Mexico City native, suggested we have ramen for lunch. His best friend was Rei, a vibrant young Japanese woman with ever-changing hair colors. We tucked into our bowls of salty noodle soup as I told them my most outlandish stories from the past 8 months. Rei was 25 years old and worked remotely as a software engineer. She was born and raised in London and went to university in the United States. During a gap year, she volunteered at a hostel in Puerto Vallarta, a resort town on Mexico's Pacific coast. One day, all the guests and hostel staff left for a day trip, leaving the hostel completely empty. They returned that evening to find the hostel burglarized. The thieves took everything: laptops, passports, wallets, and credit cards. Rei flew to the capital to get a new passport, only to fall in love with the city, staying for the next 2 years and getting temporary residency. I admired her positive outlook. There wasn't a trace of bitterness in her voice when she recalled getting robbed. The misfortune brought her to Mexico City, where she found a life richer than she ever imagined. She was always cold, and couldn't fathom how I could walk around Mexico City in the evening wearing shorts, while she shivered in a puffer jacket. She hated swimming because the water was always too cold. There were times of the year when she had the heater running in her bedroom, while her roommate had the air conditioner running in his. I didn't understand why she went to Antarctica last Christmas and lived in Sweden for 6 months. She clarified, she can tolerate the cold when it's pretty. Rei was one of those people who glowed with kindness and a sharp intelligence. She loved fashion and recently purchased a sewing machine so she can experiment with her clothing. Her hair was currently bleach blonde and dark blue at the ends. She changed her hair color once a month. Changing her appearance was her way of relieving boredom. I've never dyed my hair in my life, but if I do, I know who to ask for advice. We bonded over our love for raw food: ceviche, aguachile, sashimi, steak tartare. Her favorite food was Chinese hot pot, which I also love. She used to host hot pot dinners, but stopped when she found herself chopping garlic for 20 people. Last year, she went on a trip to Africa and said the hot pot in Ethiopia was incredible. She loved Africa and wanted to go to Congo next year. While I wasn't sure if I'd go to Congo on my next trip, I do plan to go to Africa. Perhaps Rei and I will cross paths there. Long-term solo travelers should never underestimate the power of good friends with spare rooms. During my first 6 months in Mexico City, I lived in a house with 9 other people. Since I left, my former housemates, Alfredo and Andreas, moved into their own apartment. Andreas was on vacation in Oaxaca when I arrived and offered me his room for the weekend. Their new apartment was bright and airy, with elevators that opened directly into the living room. In the flurry of messages about Wi-Fi passwords, electronic room keys, and earthquake evacuation routes, they failed to mention they had a third roommate. Alfredo went to the gym, so I believed I was alone in the apartment. I was cooking dinner with my back turned to the living room when the third roommate came out of her room and said hello. I screamed, and we introduced ourselves. Mona was an Egyptian-American software engineer, taking advantage of her remote job to live abroad. She had large, dark eyes, wavy dark hair, and impeccable makeup. She grew up as a first-generation immigrant in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Her parents had a difficult time assimilating to life in the United States. Instead of sending her to an American public school, her parents and the other Middle Eastern families formed a tight-knit Muslim community and homeschooled their children. I asked if she had any American non-Muslim friends at the time. She replied no. There was never an opportunity in such a closed environment. As a teenager, she attended a regular American high school, which was an incredibly difficult adjustment. She wore a headscarf throughout her childhood, but stopped in high school in order to fit in. When I was a child, I went to a Chinese language school every Saturday. Chinese and Taiwanese immigrant children of all ages took Mandarin classes to retain their native language while growing up in the United States, but that was the extent of it. I couldn't imagine anything like Mona's upbringing. I wished I had more than just one conversation with her. I would have loved to get to know her better. But she returned to the United States for her Mexican residency interview the next day, and I never saw her again. I caught up with Alfredo after he returned from the gym. He was born and raised in Argentina and moved to Mexico City for work. He was in a new relationship with a divorced man from Uruguay named Alex, who was 10 years older, mature, and calm. This was ironic since not too long ago, Alfredo was attracted to quite the opposite. He confessed, even though he was enjoying the relationship at the moment, he knew there was a strong possibility it wouldn't last, and he was content with that. I remember I saw my relationships in a similar light when I was his age. I wasn't ready for commitment back then, but I still wanted to participate in romance. I asked if they had an open relationship. He giggled and replied, Alex has had both monogamous and non-monogamous relationships and enjoyed both. He let Alfredo choose the conditions. Alex was completely fine with him having sex with other people, as long as he was emotionally loyal. Having children was a non-negotiable for Alfredo because he loved children and knew he wanted to be a father someday. Alex was open to it. Whenever he's ready, I believe Alfredo will be an amazing husband and father. I've been reading Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. The novel dives into the brutal reality of a poverty-stricken Mexican village. The story unfolds around the murder of a local witch and exposes the violence, misogyny, and desperation that permeate this community. Through the lens of various characters, the novel explores the social and economic issues that fuel the cycle of violence, leaving a lasting impression of a society in crisis. The Mexico I see from my window and the one I encounter in the novel are worlds apart. It's a stark reminder of the vast economic and social disparities within this magnificent country. Later in the week, I went to a party at my former house and met some new people who recently moved in. Most of my former housemates moved on. Either they left Mexico City entirely or now had their own place in the city. Among the new residents was Victoria. She was half Mexican, half Colombian, and returned to Mexico City after 10 years of living in the United States and the Netherlands. She had to leave the Netherlands because she was unable to get a work visa. Victoria was only 25 years old and had hip mobility problems. She said she lived a sedentary life back in the Netherlands, where the long, depressing winters led her to avoid physical activity. She was currently unemployed and trying to build an online community of remote workers in the tech field. She asked me a strange question. Do you think women can have it all? I found this question difficult to answer because not all women want the same things in life. But I knew what she meant, and I replied yes, women can have it all, depending on the individual circumstances, of course. Victoria disagreed. She believed a woman had to choose between being a good mother or having a successful career. I found this odd. She was trying to build an online community of software engineers, user experience designers, and data analysts. Has she forgotten there were real-life communities of aunts, uncles, grandparents, and vast networks of extended family? She herself worked from her laptop, and her family lived right here in Mexico City. My own grandmother had 4 children and worked all her life. She grew up in the countryside during the Chinese Cultural Revolution, where people needed ration tickets to purchase household staples like soap. Needless to say, Grandma was not a corporate executive. But she and her husband were away from home for 10 hours a day to contribute to the meager family income. Her father-in-law had a job in the village. Her mother-in-law took care of the children and most household chores. Both in-laws were taken care of in their old age. It's a support system that may not apply to everyone's circumstances, but it is effective. Victoria's question of "can women have it all?" depressed me. We are living in an age of modern convenience, and we've forgotten that the traditional methods still work. It isn't necessary to adopt them completely, but there's also no need to reject them completely either. I believe we can draw inspiration from the past and use what is helpful to us here in the present. I began talking to a beautiful young Indian girl named Tara. She was a user experience designer, but unfortunately was recently laid off. It was the second layoff of her career, and she was taking it in stride. Tara was 23 years old, grew up in Michigan, and had plans to travel through Latin America in the coming months, since she now had plenty of free time. She was apprehensive about leaving Mexico City and the warm community of the shared house. I said it was the same as leaving her parents' house to go to university in another state. Perhaps not exactly the same, but it was similar. Phases of life and the people in it come and go. The new people in this house where I used to live were a reminder that nothing stays the same. Enjoy the present and embrace the current chapter with its unique cast of characters and their stories. Along this journey through Latin America, I stopped in Brazil for 2.5 weeks. Find out how I spent my time in Sao Paulo in this video, where I reunite with a familiar face, enjoy live samba music, and see a play at a local theater.